Hi. This isn't Mandela. This one. And Adele. Super. Hi. So this is going to happen in English. But before I'm going to say what I'm about to say, I think it's important I spend at least 30 seconds talking about who I am, because it's problematic. The stuff that I'm about to say doesn't come easy, even for me. Even though people know me as someone who usually says before he thinks. But I've done many things in my life. I've tried them out a lot. I'll keep on trying. This definitely isn't something that I'll be doing for the rest of my life, but I think it is something that we all need to finally admit to ourselves, if nothing else. And this is too fast, but I wanted to say in the middle of my presentation, hello to the internet, because apparently sound is off for the people who are listening, watching this on the internet. If you're speaking in English, confused. Okay, so here's the thing. The university education system is broken. Okay, it's time we start talking about this seriously. Everything is broken. We've tried to fix it 100 different times for the past 500 years, since about Cambridge came to be. Nothing changed much, right? We still do stuff in the same way. And the most horrible thing about this is that even when something like the Bologna reform comes in, breaks everything even more, people come and say, well, it's not our fault, we're sorry, we're just following the rules given to us by someone else. And we seem to be suffering that constantly, right? So I know that the stuff that I'm going to do at my university is useless to me as far as I'm going to get a job. I think that the way the university works has a ton of problems that you all experience every day. And what I want to talk to you about is what are some of the ideas or some of the ways in which we can slowly start fixing that university, you, the people in this room, if no one else. But first, let's talk about how it all began. I didn't come up with this immediately. This isn't something that happened in a brilliant moment of genius. It started about 3 years ago, where a group of people would hang out on Friday evenings, Friday 6 p.m. At the old technology park. We would brainstorm about artificial intelligence. We would have homework to do, so someone would assign articles that we would have to study for a week, and then on Fridays we would talk about them, and we would experiment, and we would dream. We would, I don't know, this is embarrassing, but at one point we said we're going to figure out how the female orgasm works, because the Wiimote allows you to track the movement, so if we put something on it, and at the same time those brain sensors started getting cheap, and we were like, what we're going to do is at the same time put the brain sensors on and then correlate the data, and this is going to be epic. Well, nothing of that ever happened. But that's where it started, that's where it started. And then we slowly moved on, and something that is now called the Iconic Startup School came to be, and we work with startups. We work with startups because they're the ones who currently have this problem and unfortunately are willing to pay for it, right? So they are currently the only people who truly feel the fact that the way the university works right now is useless for them, because they want to be doing new stuff, right? So far, because I have to brag at least a little bit, over 100 startups have gone through Iconic's program. We've had 30 plus startups that have been taken to Silicon Valley, and because we have to talk numbers at one point, even though I don't want to, in some of those startups altogether $5 million were invested. Granted, most of them will fail, but it's not about that. It's about people trying out new stuff and other people believing them it will work and willing to support them. And we're going to talk about failure in a couple of minutes as well. But this is where stuff is at right now. There's been a ton of lessons, we've tried a ton of different things, we've all been to university, to different kinds of universities. I now work with the geeks, whereas I study philosophy and sociology of culture. So here's what I think, or here's what we think needs to happen. So there's two halves to the equation, and this wants to be two pluses put together, if anyone doesn't get the brilliant design. So on the left side, you've got stuff that is concerned with how we teach people, so how we give information to other people, and the right side is concerned with how people actually learn, right? So what do we as students do every day in order to process that knowledge? And number one, top left corner, time pressure. It does wonders. It's a brilliant thing. It really is. The problem with time pressure today is that I don't feel it. If I have an exam in 6 months, I am sorry, that is no pressure for me, unless it's a week to my exams where it's too much pressure. Right? And I realized that some of the stuff done in the Bologna reform tried to fix it, but failed miserably. The second problem with time pressure is that you want people to discuss. We want people to actually talk to each other, but the problem with these discussions is that sometimes they just trail away. So we run a bit of a dictatorship of the machine, and we say everyone has got a minute to speak, and we'll keep on circling around, but everyone's going to need to stay focused, and they'll only get a minute because otherwise we'll be here until tomorrow. And it seems to be working. So structure needs to happen in these discussions. We can't just assume that students are going to figure out everything on their own. Secondly, open access to knowledge. We try to put everything we do on the internet. There's a ton of people out there doing it already. My problem is that if a book is present in one library in Ljubljana, and there's 2 editions of that book which have already been borrowed by other people, that is not open access to knowledge, okay? And if I live somewhere at the end of the country and need to spend 4 hours to get to that library and throw away a whole day of my life to get that book, that is not open access to knowledge, okay? We spend a ton of money fixing our libraries. Yes, we do spend quite some money on digitalizing the libraries, but why don't people know about this? I'm convinced that 90% of you don't know that our National Library is trying to digitize all of their books. They aren't there yet, but it's happening. But as long as you guys don't know about this, this doesn't exist for the outside world. Now lastly, mutual grading. I think it's problematic that my professor is the only one who gets to see my work and my essays. I think that a lot of other people have a lot of good stuff to say about this, and I do realize that we have to rank people somehow, but again, I think that my peers cumulatively are better able to do that than one single person who doesn't have enough time, will, or energy to fix those 500 essays anyway. Right? So we try to make sure that everyone grades everyone on everything. We've got way too much data that we don't even display to our students, and we don't know what's going to happen with that. Maybe it's going to go down the wee dildo way. But the point is that we try to get as much feedback about everyone else as we can, so that if someone wants to, they can go and check. Last week I got a 2 at this. Today I got a 4 or a 5. Yay me, or the other way around, but people need to be able to get access to that. Now as far as learning is concerned, you can't enter into Heconic unless you have a startup. In other words, unless you're working on a project of your own, we're not here to give you theory. What I would like to see at a future university is for me to be asked every year or every semester, hey there, what would you like to work on? What interests you right now? You're going to have to listen to some general stuff because this is your profession, but most of the time we would like to spend time with you, helping you do this thing you're interested in right now. If you're going to be interested in it for 2 years, yay. For 15 years, yay. But if you change your mind after a year, just try something out. Don't just sit and absorb knowledge and think everything is fine, because it's not. I think that learning by coaching needs to happen. Most of the stuff that I've learned in my 4.5 years at university has come from conversations with my peers, have come from coffees, have come from parties, have come from taking drugs with other people. I don't really care, but the point is that everyone has got something useful to tell me about my work, and I'm sad that as far as the formal education at the university is concerned, it doesn't allow other people to do that. And lastly, failure as a lesson. Most of the projects that we started, most of the projects that I started in my life never ended in a magnificent Facebook kind of way, and they won't. But it's okay because I've learned so much, and because now I can say, yes, I've tried being a classical guitar player, it was nice, but I don't want to do this for the rest of my life. I'm going to try and do something else, and I think that's perfectly fine, and we should be encouraged to do that. So here's the point. Start something. Fortunately, you are now at the time of your life where your parents are more than willing to pay for your rent. Okay? You are abusing that already because you're spending money on cigarettes, alcohol, and parties, so don't get all righteous, right? Stop doing that and start working on something. whether it's a book, whether it's a project, whether it's a machine, or I don't know, anything. Just start working on something and figure out how you can actually bring something into existence. Because even when you're a Marxist and you dream about the day when you can be a philosopher in the morning and a builder in the evening, you actually have to philosophize and do stuff for that to happen. So go and start something, please.